Now we, give a congratulations to the Buffalo Bills.
How about that, man?
Whooped ass last night on the road. What was that, like an hour plus weather delay at halftime because of lightning in the area?
Yeah.
And look, Buffalo was the better team going into half. They came out from halftime.
And they continued to be the better team.
They looked fantastic. Josh Allen looked awesome. That defense played really well. And I don't know what this says about Kansas City, but you can go all the way back to last year. They were winning games, but there were some people that were wondering, but it seems like there's something a little bit off here. Maybe they're not as dominant as they were. And here we are. Kansas City's got a losing record, and Buffalo lays it to them. They look great.
I loved everything Buffalo did this offseason. Really the past couple of years, but specifically this offseason. Because what they did was they said, obviously they feel like they have a good chance of winning the division again. They looked past that. They said, what do we need to do in order to be able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs? And they drafted that way. They signed players in free agency that way. Like, think about this. They had just drafted A.J. Epinesa, and they already had a defensive front that with Epinesa, I don't necessarily know that they needed a ton of defensive help, but they literally drafted Gregory Rousseau in the first round, Carlos Basham in the second round, and they continue to keep drafting defensive guys, some other supplemented pieces, because they're like, no, that's what we need to be able to do to Patrick Mahomes is what we witnessed in the Super Bowl. We just need to keep putting pressure on him. And if we rotate another guy in, he's got to have the ability to do that. And so they beefed up the defense. They got themselves offensively in a space now, which I think we saw that last year. But how they opened the game was what stood out to me. Because they were balanced throwing and running the football, but they made Josh Allen a part of that. And they basically said, like, to the Chiefs, hey, this is one thing that you can't do that we can do. Like, Mahomes is mobile. He's able to run. But the last thing they want is to run him a bunch. And Josh Allen, they might say they don't want to run him, but he's big enough, physical enough to be able to, especially like that opening series, run the football around, force LaVar or a defensive player to have to respect that right away, right out the gate of the game. And that changes the way you got to play them, right?
Yeah.
And they're already hard enough to stop. So I love everything they've done from the offseason leading into this year.
I know it's early, and I thought you did a great job of what Buffalo did, but what Kansas City is not doing is got to start to be, if you're a Kansas City fan, if you're a Kansas City coach, what you're not doing has to start to become somewhat of a concern. Again, everyone is projecting them to be the Super Bowl representative out of the AFC. I don't think there's any reason to pull the ripcord just yet. Again, it's week 5, but you have to make mention of the fact. Think about this, right? It's one thing to lose the game. It's another reason or another way to look at it when you lose the game the way that Kansas City lost the game. Do you realize that outside of the fourth quarter, Buffalo outscored them in every single quarter, first, second, and third quarter.
Yeah.
They both scored 7 in the fourth. That is not something that you can – the third quarter is generally the quarter, if you look at the stat lines and you look at what Kansas City is able to do, they adjust, they adapt, they come out, and they smack. And it could be – and you could sit here and you could say the fact that Andy Reid had more time because of the delays to figure out, configure with his group what they needed to come out and do to be effective would have been what you thought you would see from an Eric Bieniemy who's supposedly supposed to be on his way to being a high-powered head coach somewhere at the NFL level. When you think about the fact that they got shut out in the third quarter, something is wrong in Kansas City.
And they're also the worst defense in the league. I mean,
something's wrong.
Because there's a lot of statistics you can look at. What's the most important?
Worse than Seattle?
Well, as far as points allowed, worst defense in the league.
God, I don't know. Seattle's pretty bad.
Yeah, but their defense feels like they've regressed. And I know they didn't have Chris Jones and all that, but it feels like they've definitely taken a step back, and they had no answers last night.
Can I ask two questions? I'll start off by asking this because LaVar, you said something that kind of triggered my betting mind, and I know Jonas is all on board for this.
Yeah.
So right now, I would assume, and Jonas, I'm sure you could probably see the odds, but would you guys lay money still on the Chiefs to be going to Super Bowl, to win a Super Bowl, or are you on the other side now seeing the Bills? Because I guess, go back to last year. Remember when these two teams played off? We're like, they're going to see each other in the playoffs. Not that big of a deal who wins this. If Kansas City would have lost, wouldn't they have been playing in Buffalo for the AFC Championship game?
Yes. I
mean, so now I look at it, I'm like, okay, I still think these two teams are going to be playing off for it in the AFC Championship game. It's probably going to be in Buffalo, and I give them a huge advantage if that's the case. So I know the game might have felt meaningless to some, and I don't. We could talk about the weather delay and how that might have impacted it. But the truth of the matter is, I'm putting my money on Buffalo now. I was wrong before the season. I was like, Kansas City. Why would you not bet the favorite? Now looking at it, I'm like, well, Buffalo should be the team. Because right now, everything to me tells me that they're going to be put in a position not only to be the number one seed and have a bye, but to have the home field throughout and a big-time advantage on Kansas City or anyone else who tries to come in their house.
I'll say this. I liked what Buffalo did. People can't say that game didn't mean anything. You don't know football if you said that game doesn't mean anything. That's a statement game. And you know what? Buffalo had that delay just like Kansas City had that delay. You know what I mean? So, in the end, you got to come out and you got to be ready to play. All things given, everybody had the same circumstances. And Buffalo came out and still continued to do something that we have not seen be done to the Kansas City Chiefs, which is show that they were a better team from start to finish. Now, am I going to take Buffalo against the field at this point and take Kansas City out? I think Kansas City is not off to the type of start that would say to me they are going to turn into this hot team and start playing like what Kansas City is. I really do. If you guys have been paying attention to me, I've been saying I'm not so certain that teams have caught up to Kansas City and to Patrick Mahomes. Now, I know he's playing pretty good, but he's had a lot of turnovers. It's uncharacteristic.
13 picks in his last 14 games.
It's not, and some of them are just kind of just careless throws, like almost. I don't want to get into saying arrogant or too confident, but some of them are just really, really not the type of throws where if he's trying to make it in life and he's not like the bona fide guy that he makes those throws. I just don't think he does it. So if I'm looking at it, I say it opens it up. I think the Buffalo Bills are clearly a team that's making the statement that they should be taken seriously for being the representative out of the AFC. But I got to tell you, there were some really interesting games on yesterday that says that the AFC, and it could, again, come back to the North. It could come back to the North. And, we'll see Baltimore play tonight, but I'm not so sure the Bills are going to be the outright favorites to go. I think it's probably going to be a 3-team race, and I'm just not sure who those 3 teams that are going to emerge to be it. But I'm concerned that it might not be Kansas City. That's one of those 3 teams.
Well,